Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learn this truth from who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit, and I'm entitled this one: The world is finding out who the problem of the earth is. And the problem of the earth that all, not just people here in America, but throughout the four corners of the earth, now they're starting to realize who is causing all the problems of the earth. Yeah, you may have these Edomites, these so-called white people. You know, they blame it on Jake over here in America. They blame it on the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But really, it ain't Jake crashing the economy. You know, it ain't Jake collapsing the dollar and, you know, laying people off in the thousands and the tens of thousands and replacing them with AI. No, it ain't Jake pushing these, you know, these jump shots that you got to take when there's a pandemic, you know, a C-demic, the C-19 ordeal. You know, it ain't Jake, you know, putting GMO foods and polluting the air with chemtrails and dumping millions of gallons of waste in the oceans. And now you got whales and all these different sea animals beaching themselves. You know, no, ultimately, the one that's doing all this wickedness around the planet Earth would be none other but the self-proclaimed white man. And he put that title of white on himself so the whole world could turn the other way, you know, so they could turn at, oh, look at the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. They're the problem with the earth. But how are they the problem with the earth if, you know, the Israelites, they don't have any power. They're not sovereign. You know, they don't have a military. They don't have influence in the, you know, in the media and you know, in the monetary system. You know, the ones who control all that, you know, it's ultimately the so-called white people, but mainly the Amalekites, you know, the tiny hats, the tiny tops, the people over there in the land of Israel that are proclaiming to be the people of the Lord, which we know they're not. You know, but now even the whole world is starting to find that out. So ultimately, the whole world is starting to realize, okay, you know, this is the cancer of the earth. This is the problem of the earth. And that's why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is taking the devil out of here, because if it was up to this devil, he would end up destroying humanity. He would end up destroying himself with the plans that he has in store for the entire earth. You know, transhumanism, microchip in everybody, cockroach, you know, protein bars, cricket protein bars, and all manners of madness that this devil has planned for the entire earth. That's why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to have to get him out of here. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8. And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And who is the wicked of the entire planet Earth? It's the so-called white people, the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, the twin brother of Jacob, that were prophesied to rule in the latter days, in these last days, that would allow them to have complete rulership of the entire earth. Because ultimately, the one who allowed Esau, even the so-called white man, to rule on the planet Earth was none other than the Heavenly Father. No, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. It's not because he worked so hard and he got all these riches, you know, because he was such a good nation of people. No, ultimately he got that blessing because he sold his birthright. He gave up his birthright for a morsel of meat, because ultimately this devil, he can't wait. He has that instant gratification syndrome, you know, where he can't wait, and that's ultimately why he sold his birthright to his twin brother, his younger brother Jacob, which his name was later changed to Israel. And these are the only two nations who were prophesied to have complete rulership of the entire earth. But now that you got the prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai on the scene, you know, starting with our elder high priest Abba Bibbins, back in the 60s. And at that time point of period, the kingdom of Esau, Edom started collapsing. This devil started getting exposed for who he really is, his true biblical identity. And now that target is on his back. But now it is more clear than ever who the problem of the entire earth is, which is ultimately this so-called white man, Esau, Edom. Because he's the main one messing up the entire earth, destroying the earth, cutting down the trees, polluting the water, putting GMO foods, McDonald's, and social media, feminism, the LGBTQ agenda, the alphabet agenda. Says verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. So he made the whole world to believe that he was the chosen people. That, they're white, they're pure, because that word white, ultimately goes back to pure, which they're not pure. They're pure in wickedness, but not pure in righteousness. The ones that are righteous ultimately is the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But we know that majority of our people, they're going to follow after the ways of Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, which is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. Because majority of our people, they're not going to repent. They're not going to turn back to Yahweh Shem Shai, because they've been so indoctrinated to believe that the so-called white man is good. But even our own people are starting to realize, damn, maybe those guys on the highways and byways are right. He does nothing but destroy, kill, murder, steal, goes out throughout all these different countries so he could impose his democracy and impose his currency and claim that all these different nations have weapons of mass destruction, so he could go in there and invade and take all their resources. But that's why even all these different nations, they're tired of this horde. They're tired of Babylon the Great. They're tired of America. They're tired of Esau, Edom. And ultimately they're tired of those tiny hats, those Amalekites in the Holy Land, the 1948ers. It says Proverbs 29 and verse 2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And the people are mourning right now because of who's in rulership. The so-called white man, Esau, Edom, the wicked, the sons of the wicked. You have the three classifications of men, which the first one, the sons of God, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And then you have the sons of men, the other heathen nations, the Africans, the Arabians, Ishmael, the Chinese, the Japanese. Those are the sons of men. And then you have the third classification, which are the sons of the wicked, the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, which that lets you know how wicked these people are. They ultimately follow after the spiritual demon Satan. But now it's to the point where even Satan, he's like, man, I'm done dealing with y'all. Y'all about to be through. Y'all about to collapse. That's why the entire earth, really, including the animals, they're crying out for righteous rulership, because the right nation, which is a nation of Israel, they're not in power right now. The ones who are in power are ultimately these wicked ass Edomites. But we know that Yahweh Shem Shai is about to get them out of here, because the entire earth is mourning, and mainly the elect, we're crying out for all the abominations that are being done in the midst thereof. So ultimately Yahweh Shem Shai is about to get this devil out of here, and he's about to establish the nation of Israel, starting with the destruction of America, Babylon the Great, and the deliverance of the elect through the chariots of salvation, the chariots of Israel. And that's when the end of Esau, Edom's kingdom starts, and that's the beginning of the kingdom of heaven that's going to be established upon the planet Earth. And that's when all these people up on the planet Earth are going to finally rejoice. They're going to be like, damn, okay, y'all should have been in power from the beginning. But no, ultimately we had to go through the curses and all these different captivities to understand this is how you're not supposed to rule the planet Earth. And this is the result of it. It is Babylon the Great, America, and really this entire beast system, the entire earth. That's why Yahweh Shem Shai is going to allow us to rule the entire planet Earth for eternity. Lord willing, will be a part of the elect. And have those new bodies where we're finally going to be judges, knowing in its entirety, knowing good and knowing evil, knowing how not to run the earth. This is Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 10. But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. And it's being made evident who Esau Edom is, which is the so-called white man, no other. Because here you have Esau Edom claiming to be the Israelites, claiming to be the Egyptians, claiming to be the Vikings, claiming to be the Native Americans, claiming to be the Hawaiians and the Samoans, claiming to be the Europeans, and all these different nations that Esau Edom is claiming, except for his nation. That's the last nation that anybody wants to claim. The nation of the Edomites, because we know what's going to happen to the Edomites. They're going to get, first they're going to serve 1,000 long hardcore years of slavery along with the other heathen nations. But after those 1,000 long hardcore years, Esau Edom is going to be done away with, like it says in Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18. And all these nations are going to see Esau Edom like, damn, this is what happens when you rule the entire earth in wickedness. Ultimately you're going to get put out of the face of the planet Earth. And along with all his seat line, Esau Edom is going to be done away with. But it's going to be an example of how not to rule of the planet Earth and what happens when you run it in complete wickedness. Ultimately, you're gonna get put out of your misery. You're gonna get put out of extinction. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And ultimately going into the times we're in now. Now we know that we're at the very end of this current kingdom, being ran by the so-called white man Esau Edom. And he's about to get out of here. It says verse 8, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, and when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. And that's what we're doing in the spirit. Chanting out Babylon, telling this devil, that he's going down. He's going to go into slavery. And that's why he's about to come down with that great wrath, because it's to the point where the cat is out the bag, and the entire earth knows that this devil is Esau Edom. He's the so-called white man, and he don't like it. Really, he's losing sleep. He's bugging the hell out. He's going crazy. That's why he's just gonna have to say fuck it and come down on the men of the Lord, come down on the hopeful elect. Verse 9, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And that's right. We're at the end of Esau Edom's kingdom, of America, Babylon the Great, and his beast system. And the one that follows it is going to be the kingdom of heaven. And that's what we're looking forward to, because really the entire earth, except the Edomites, they're looking forward towards the kingdom of heaven, because even these heathens, the sons of men, they know that ultimately the nation of Israel should be in power. That these Edomites do nothing but fuck shit up, because even these other heathen nations, they're going to benefit from Jake being in rulership, from Yahushua and the 12 and the rest of the 144,000 being in rulership, because the law, statutes, commandments are going to be at the forefront. The world is going to know what's it like to really live, because our entire earth is polluted, from the air, from the water, the GMO foods, the mindset of these people, drinking off the Babylonian wine. So ultimately the earth needs a new rulership. This is Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 and verse 4. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. And that's why this devil was allowed to rule upon the planet earth, because Yahweh Bashim Shai gave it to him. He set up the basis of all man, but he's about to get him out of here, because he just causes nothing but destruction, nothing but death. doom and gloom. Jump down to verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And what's that one people that is going to rule next, that's going to take over that power, is going to be the nation of Israel. Because the way that this devil got in rulership has been nothing but through bloodshedding of people, of the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and along with all these heathen nations. You know, he sees oil or gold, and he's like, man, we got to go over there and take it. You know, he can never be satisfied. That's why Yahweh Shem Shai is just going to have to bring this devil down. He just messed the entire earth up. You know, but that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakudash. Dawans to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who are in the truth from and who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the elect. Unto you I say Shalom.